Okay, welcome everyone to the AU Core Technical Design Group meeting. Some people might need to go on mute. This is our first meeting back after Connectathon. And I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country, and we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we all gather today, which for me are the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. And we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and we acknowledge the First Peoples as the first scientists, educators and healers. Today's agenda will be doing what we always do, which is going through usual business. So looking at approval of the last minutes, which were sent round, doing any updates and news. And then since this is the first meeting after the Connectathon, we'll do a report back there. And we'll also do an update on AU Core testing because part of that was undertaken during the Connectathon. We'll also start to look at some of the Jiras. The email that was sent around, I think earlier this week or late last week, for the minutes also identified a set of editorial Jiras that we'll start working through. And then we'll talk about what's next, because the next meeting is going to be all about the healthcare service proposal that the agency has put up for consideration for inclusion in AU Core. And we may also have some room in that meeting to do any AU Core Jiras from the backlog. And there will be, of course, an open call for any from our community members who would like to see that discussed in the next meeting. So, talking about usual business, we'll go straight on to approval of minutes. Now, this is the hybrid meeting that we had during the HL7AU Symposium and Connectathon. So these minutes have been sent around for review. We've got here, the full list of attendees. We've got the recording, the slides, and the decisions and outcomes we took during that, along with a bit more detail, which we usually do when it's more of a face-to-face type meeting. There was one of the decisions that was made there was on the proposal on adding dosage rules to AU Core. And there were a couple of actions on these that I need to, I did that tick on my behalf. And I'm about to do this today, so we'll count that as a tick as well. Now, I'm not aware of any outstanding feedback, but does anyone need more time to review this before we move to approve it? I'm not seeing any hands up or hearing anyone. So in that case, I'll ask, is someone happy to motion for approval of the minutes of our last meeting?
I'll motion, Christy.
Thanks, Christy. Is anyone happy to second?
I'm happy to second, Landon.
Thanks, Landon. Are there any other comments or questions while I go to the poll? All right, I'll launch that. So you'll now see a poll appear on your screen for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. If you didn't attend, then please feel free to click abstain. If you are a late realization to the fact that you actually need more time to review or there's a problem in the minutes, vote negative. Otherwise, please vote to approve the minutes. We'll just give that a bit more because there's only 65% of people who voted, so just waiting for a few more. And if you can't vote, please put that in the chat or call out your name if you have dialed in with your vote. All right, I'm going to end that poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and I'll share those results. So we have 17 affirmative, 0 negative, and 22 abstain. So that motion passes and the minutes are approved. Back to a usual business. So there were the 2 actions that I need to report on, which are, so these were both out of the last minutes. So one of them is about doing some further reporting on dosage, and the other is looking at how we make clear that there are polls on Zulip that we want people to be filling out and providing community input. So on the first one on dosage, we had a really, I think, good discussion about dosage and what really is the minimum, and there was incredible agreement that text is the minimum must support element across both medication statement and medication request. There was a lot of interest in a bunch of other elements that are common, things like route and timing. But I think there was this sense that we're not feeling confident that we can actually say that these are the minimum requirements across every single use case, no matter what. And so we took an action to note during Connectathon what usage of dosage sub elements in FHIR were being exchanged and how they were used, and to kind of report back and start to go down that journey on working out if there are additional things we want to add must support to in AU Core R2. So we've taken some of that reporting from Connectathon, and I think there's a couple of worthwhile findings out of this, but I do think we need to keep looking at this over time. So there was some really strong usage of the sample FHIR test data that's been made available. And that includes a lot of dosage sub-elements from the HL7AU FHIR content. So that went through in terms of exchange, in terms of AU Core, which is to say that if a server or an AU Core responder had loaded the sample data, they were able to retrieve and send it on. And then that went to the requester, which might have been a client app or might have been another kind of system, who didn't fall over, had no error. But what we didn't really get was a lot of information on, well, are they just ignoring that data because there's extra stuff there they don't need? Are they actually displaying it properly? Are we processing it? Is it really the data you actually need? And there was, I think, a very limited sample data from, I think, best practice and maybe MediRecords, who had their own data, but the rest of it was really playing with the HL7AU FHIR sample test data. So I think my note back to this group is that we need to continue looking at this and reporting back on it. I don't think we got any kind of conclusive results that there were additional elements that were being, absolutely necessary and absolutely used in all different systems the entire time. For any of the people who were there at the Connectathon, did you want to add any further comments to what I was just saying about dosage? All right, let's move on to the next one then. So one of the things that became clear when we talked about the dosage proposal is that we got some advice from Sanjeev that he wasn't aware that that dosage poll was there, and that's a likely indicator that there's wider parts of the community who also weren't aware that we were looking and seeking for information on this. And there is quite an extensive sort of use of Zulip, and I've just got an example here for one that's open at the moment. So this is also, folks, if you are interested to provide input, there's one out now from the Australian FHIR Work Group who's seeking information on coverage, and this is going to take a while, isn't it, to resolve. There we go. So there's a poll there that's been put out trying to understand what particular parts of a FHIR coverage resource that are being implemented for those people who have implemented it. And that's going to feed into some of the work that will be done in AU Base in the current release, which is looking at publishing an AU Base coverage resource that will then also be reused in e-requesting. So this kind of thing is being done all the time in our Australian channel. You can see there was one there for seeking input on healthcare service, which will be driving the agency's proposal, which, is out there. And you can still come back and add to it if you want, but that has also happened. And there was one for dosage, and I think we did one also for like medication statement when we were producing it. So these are kind of ongoing all the time. And how we had been advertising it is showing the Zulip poll and providing a QR link in the TDG call while it was open, putting a link in the minutes, and also when we do the shared comms email. So we put out fortnightly the minutes plus next meeting email, which goes, here's where you can find the minutes for review, and here's what's coming up, including any requests for information. So we'd been doing that, but there's also a suggestion to say, well, let's actually do a separate email as well. So every time a poll is created, send out to the community, to the AU Core TDG, an extra email. So I want to question that in this meeting. Does that something that people would like? Is that echoing for people that an extra email would be excellent? Or are people going, no, that's just too many emails. I already find that you send too many emails. Is anyone happy to comment? I also have a poll if people would prefer that. I can pop that up.
If there is a decision to send an email, I think it should have its own subject or something or other like that, so that you can put a filter up and then just make them, to help you find which ones are just about something that you can ignore or not. So I'm not particularly in favour of the emails, but I don't object to them. But if we do have them, I think they should be easy to filter from the other emails.
Mm-hmm. Well, how about I just launch the poll? This isn't like making a decision. It's just getting a sense from people about advertising those polls. Should we send a separate email? Are you unconcerned either way? Do you not want an extra email? You're happy with how things are being communicated. Don't add anything extra. Or do you have a different idea? And if you select that, I'm going to ask what that is. I see about 60% have entered in their feedback.
Danielle, Sanjeev has his hand up.
Oh, awesome. Sanjeev.
Yeah, Daniel, just a quick question. I think previously we used to have, and I might have raised it in my previous meeting as well. We used to have confluence pages, right, where each vendor or participant can go and respond, and it was one single location where you had information collated and you can see what others were doing. Any idea why we're not doing that now and doing Zulip?
We did. There is a Confluence page for dosage, which linked to the Zulip poll. So that did happen.
Okay.
Though I guess it's did you even know that there was a Confluence page in the first place, I think is something that is also maybe got lost.
Okay. I think I'm happy with whatever we have right now. It's just Zulip, we don't get notified, which is why if it's coming in the email, that's fine. I think that's what we have right now.
All right, we've got 82% of respondents who have responded. No one's got a different idea. Okay, so I'm going to end that poll and I'm going to share the results. So at this point, 14 people have said, yes, extra email would be good. 10% have said, I'm happy with how it's currently done. I don't need an extra email or something else. And 18 have said, I don't mind. How about we try, since there does look like people who are like, yes, please, a separate email. How about we try doing the extra email? And then we can come back and check on this in a couple of meetings' time and say, well, did I really need that? Or should we keep going? Or is that actually too much? Would people be okay with that? And if you're not, could you put your hand up if you actually have an objection to trialing the extra email? I think that the thumbs up counts as a hand up. So there's 1, 2. So 3 have said, no, don't do that. Okay, I think that's kind of clear to me to trial it, given the numbers of people on the call who will get that extra email. So we're going to trial it and we'll come back after a couple of months and just recheck if we should stop those extra emails or if that really is hitting the sweet spot. Okay, so that's the update. No, sorry, that's the actions. Updates and news. I wanted to share with people. So AU Core Inferno R1 has been released. There were some comms sent around that, but this is up and available, and it matches the AU Core R1 IG that was released. So that is out and here and live. So you can get testing against the reference version of AU Core. There's also obviously the development versions of this, both the AU Core IG and the test kit, but either way, there's a permanent one of these until we override it with R2. There's also, I wanted to highlight for people, the firework group who looks after AU Base is doing a call on the 9th of April to discuss AU Base next release. They've put out a call, and they've done that, of course, via Zulip. I wonder if that's coping. It's not looking that great, actually, at resolution. But they've put out a call. They're also going to meet on this on the 9th and looking at scoping. And I would encourage anyone on this call who has some additional extensions or some other things that they think will impact base and not just core to attend that call. But if you can't make the call, you can always put the things that you're working on that you would like to see surface in core in the next release in this chat, because this chat will be looked at in that next call if you can't make it. So I just wanted to highlight that for everyone. All right. That's the end of the updates and news I'm aware of. Is there anything else? Have I missed an update? All right. Let's get on to Connectathon report back. So I'll hand over to you, Steve.
Okay, thank you. All right, great. So a couple of weeks ago, we had our Connectathon in Sydney. The aim of this Connectathon really was around getting started with AU Core and collecting some test coverage for some of the new resources. So medication statement and related person are the two new profiles resources that we've added. There was also a patient summary track and some other streams, but they're going to be discussed in their relevant work group calls. We did have a number of organizations present. So we had 10 organizations dealing specifically with AU Core. So we had Extranet, InterSystems, Best Practice, Orion Health, MediRecords, Intervise, Interfuse, Oracle, New South Wales Health, Tech Intro, Beta, and Sonic. There was actually 12 names there, but a couple of people were working on some parts of AU Core as well. And really we had, I guess, in terms of splitting it up into the requesters and responders, we had 4 requesters. So they're the client side of AU Core, and then 6 responders. So that's the server side. But what we did actually have, which was interesting, was multiple requesters connecting to multiple different responders. And we're going to hear from one of those participants shortly. And I guess we had an AU Core 101 stream as well and a few other breakout sessions. But to talk to AU Core 101, I will hand over to Brett.
Cool. You hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So so we did have a AU Core 101 track run, just to probably give people turning up for the first time or new to AU Core somewhere to go. And whilst it's was set up as a very introductory track, I got to say the first timers that turned up were pretty sophisticated in terms of beginners. So it was very encouraging to kind of see what the beginners look like now. We had people trying to achieve things, actually coming with code, ready to try and get things done. So really there was a lot of emphasis on more just practical advice and that was pretty much more platform specific kind of advice as well in terms of which languages and what available resources there were. So that was pretty much connecting people with the right people in the room, people with the right backgrounds, helping them get started and find some better pathways to achieving the things they wanted to achieve. So I think it kind of points at the kind of materials that might be of value at a Connectathon, but in general as well, where people are kind of looking for more implementation advice as much as understanding what AU Core is as well. So that was pretty encouraging. I think hopefully all the the folks that came for the first time got something meaningful out of it, and it seemed that they'd made progress by the end of the event, and certainly had some contacts that they could readily ping and were connected into the channels, which is really the big aim of that kind of event as well. And I just also wanted to point out we had a lot of people working across tracks as well. So I really wanted to kind of point that out as well, where we had Smart App Launch being used, and then AU Core to feed apps in a meaningful way. So this is really getting down to using AU Core for doing business. And of course, we had our patient summary stream, which is essentially use of AU Core content to do things. So yeah, that was a great event, and hopefully, you can encourage others to come along to these events as well. And it seems now that you have to be pretty quick off the mark to get a ticket. So we'll certainly keep you informed when the next one's coming.
Thanks, Brett. And Landon, did you want to, I guess, provide some insight from someone who was, connecting and being connected to in the Connectathon?
Sure, I'll give a very quick update. So we brought along an unencrypted AU Core Fire Facade endpoint that anyone could connect to. We had already AU Core R1 resources and a handful of the early R2 implementations, like related person, medication statement. So we're able to hook up to the R2 preview of Ilya's Inferno test harness, and we're able to validate those resources and see if any of our R1 resources had broken. And we're able to provide that to back through to test coverage, and we found a few issues, which is great. Aside from that, I believe we had around 4 organizations connect to our Fire Facade. I don't recall all of the vendors' names, but some of the implementations to our data loaded. Oh, actually, some of the ones that connected were for smartphone applications. One of them was a CBD calculator. I think Ilya from Better Software had a EMR web app which connected to our AU Core resources. There were several first-time participants who successfully connected to our endpoints. Some used Power BI to visualize the data, and others use it as intermediaries and forwarded onto other Fire servers after they connected to our Fire server. So this was more connections to our Fire API than ever before at any other Connectathon, which is really promising. Everyone was connecting to everyone's Fire servers, which is great. So we received a lot of valuable feedback, and we fed that into our backlog. For us, it's a hugely worthwhile experience because we can validate against other requesters. They provide feedback. We can test against Inferno, and it all goes into our backlog. So for us now, we've got to make all those fixes. So it's less of a woohoo and a bit of a uh-oh, we've got to fix it.
Thanks, Landon.
Thank you.
I think maybe just before we move on to a summary of some of the breakouts that the agency ran there, are there any of the other people who were at the Connectathon who want to speak to their experience or any other comments or questions about that? All right, so I'll hand over to Harps to speak on the agency's breakout around AU Core Healthcare Service.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. Can you hear me right?
Yes.
Thank you. So yes, so the healthcare service fire resource type was introduced, explaining how it can be used, the differences between Fire R and R5 were also discussed. The agency plans to use the healthcare service resource for the Health Connect Directory API, but this depends on whether an AU Core profile is available in AU Core R2. It was also discussed that it's important to follow the AU Core standards to ensure everything is implemented consistently across Australia. The agency will share the Health Connect Directory communication plan once it's available. And attendees across the breakout session generally agreed that having an AU Core profile of health care service would be beneficial if it meets some of the conditions. There are 2, I think, were discussed. It should offer guidance, conformance requirements, and example instances to help with standardized implementation in Australia. Secondly, it should not be tailored to specific use cases and should not create obstacles for any use cases. Currently, there is a new healthcare service profile up for consideration, and agency welcomes the community to provide feedback. And we've also got a link listed there, URL. More information and notes from the breakout session can be found at that session.
Thanks, Halps. Are there any questions or comments on the breakout? All right, so here I want to put this up. HL7 Australia has asked that we, as the technical design group, and it's not just the AU Core TDG call, this will be shown to patient summary, it'll be shown to e-requesting, provide them some advice on when is the best date for the next Connectathon. There's a QR code there. This is only open for a week. So can you please go to that QR code and have a look at, and there's some dates around August and also locations. I think there's two options. One is Brisbane, one is Melbourne, and provide that advice back to HL7AU on where would you like, in terms of city and date, the next Connectathon to be. I'm just going to leave that up there to give people the opportunity to go to it, and I'm just going to vote on that now myself.
Why use this rather than one of our little pop-up questionnaires?
Sorry, why is it something else rather than a TDG Zoom poll?
That's it. I guess it has
HL7's business. Yeah.
right. Vic.
Just on the first option, is Wednesday the 13th of August normally a public holiday in Brisbane for the ECA, or around that time?
Oh, it might be. Yeah.
I can get my vote, but maybe not on holiday. I'll go. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, I hadn't realized that. All right, I'm going to move on from this slide shortly. The slide pack itself is on the minutes page. Dushy, can you provide a link to the minutes page where people can like download and get back to this QR code
Yes.
if they've not had the opportunity? Okay. Cool.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to move on from that one. Okay, so that's it for Connectathon report back. I'm going to go on to testing update now. So a whole bunch of testing happened in the Connectathon, which was fantastic. And so I'm going to do a brief kind of context coming back in and then talk about the updates to it. So AU Core has two conformance approaches. So two ways to implement AU Core, essentially. You can do profile only, which are systems that just look at the digital health information and they don't have the expectations for doing any interaction support. And the interaction support is RESTful FHIR. So that can sometimes be because you're maybe exchanging things which are attachments, or you're downloading, or you're doing other things like that. And there's a whole bunch of potential use cases and system uses I'm aware of that are doing just profile only support from AU Core rather than doing profile plus interaction support. And profile plus interaction support is where you're actually doing the behavior, ways in which you can actually access the data, which is, you know, shaped like AU Core shape. So we have a look when we do testing across both of these things, and we're interested here in testing the standard. And testing the standard against some of the decisions we make and whether or not that's actually working out, or if it has unintended consequences, or if it's inhibiting some downstream use cases, or if we actually need to be more prescriptive because it's so ambiguous or open that it's not actually supporting what's crucial, which is why AU Core is about the minimum requirements. And so we've got there profile only rules the data conforms to, and there we're tracking the different requirements defined in the profiles, which include extensions, which include terminology, and we're also tracking the requirements for AU Core on missing data and suppressed data, because both of those are part of the requirements for profile-only support. It's about a system that is capable of correctly populating a particular profile that's flagged with the mandatory and the must support elements, including the capacity for supporting the missing data and suppressed data requirements. And when we talk about interaction support, that is the RESTful API. And so that gets defined in interactions, which are really about things like the search parameters, about the operations, and those are in the capability statements. We have 2 in AU Core. So it's AU Core Requester, which is a set of capabilities around creating a data access request, and Responder, which is a system that's responsible for responding to a data access request, and the actor definitions, which are defining requesters and responders. So again, we look at, when we're testing, all those different interactions and search parameters and operations through the capability statements. So what we get to when we're talking about working standard, and we did this for R1, and we're going to do it again for R2. So any changes we make, including new profiles or additional must supports, we're trying to bring this to the standard of which it is AFMM2. And from a testing coverage perspective, 2 is there. It's a 0, 1, 2, and it keeps going up an ordinal scale. I won't cover all of it now. I think we'll look at that a bit later as we come into ballot. But 0 is basically, we have an idea, it's draft, we're talking about it. AFMM1 is where we've agreed as a technical design group, we think it's appropriate and it's technically correct, as in we've got a profile or a terminology or a capability statement rule that is like technically has no errors in it. But when we come to AFMM2, which is how we're supporting the working standard, we're now checking against interoperability sort of assessments here. So we're looking that this artifact's been tested and successfully supports interoperability amongst at least 3 independently developed systems. And that's leveraged most of the scope. So at least 80% of the core data elements using sort of semi-realistic data and scenarios. And that's part of what we continue to track throughout these different testing events, the HL7AU Connectathons, the Spark testing events, and also when people are testing asynchronously and they send those results through to us to Spark to kind of add those into the coverage assessments of what we're working on. So that was part of what was looked at in the Connectathon around related person, around medication statement, around the fact that we added dosage instruction.txt to medication request, that we added dosage.txt to medication statement. Those things we looked at, who's exchanging that, how are they doing it, is it working, is it not working? So updates. We managed to add in some results from 5 new products. So there were 5 additional systems that were at the Connectathon that we hadn't had results from before that we added in. And we also got some results from people who have been testing this all the way. These partners that you see that come to the Connectathon that provide the results in were also there at the Connectathon and were testing things like medication statement, related person, and so forth. The 5 new systems we've got results from were Interfuse in their Azure Fire service, Intervise with the Smart Health Link, Kestrel's Charisma, Orion Health brought in the IPS generator they're working on, and Sonic Healthcare's Apollo were where we got some additional results in AU Core that we hadn't yet seen anything from before. So that was really interesting to have a look at that. Overall, just about everything we got some more insight into. So all of our entities on the left, location, organization, down to sex assigned at birth. There were additional systems there looking at how are they dealing with missing data and suppressed data. All the clinical resources got some additional stuff, and we got a whopping 9 systems testing with medication statement, which was really interesting. And I guess 6, we're having a look at related person. So it doesn't surprise me there was more systems that had reason or implementation for medication statement than related person. I think that's just probably what I expected. In terms of where we look at the OBS, it was interesting to see that everything but pathology result observations, we got an additional 2 or 3 systems out of that set now that we're testing parts of that. We also got a lot of responder content and also some profile only, but we didn't really get any new client apps in the last Connectathon. So I think that's a call that we should probably put out for the Spark testing event to have a look at some additional client apps who are forming those data access requests and what they look like to make sure that we're getting the right kind of coverage and definition in AU Core R2. So if we look at our AFMM requirements on saying, look, we want at least 80% of what we've decided in this technical design group is the minimum requirements to be tested by at least 3 independently developed systems. We had 2 new things essentially we were adding in, related person and medication statement. So off our sort of wonderful color chart here, we can see that we did have greater than 80% coverage for related person, but we didn't test 100% of the requirements. Whereas with medication statement, across the 9 different systems testing medication statement, we actually got 100% of what we've marked as must support was being exchanged. So here's where we want more coverage. It was related person name text. That was interesting. We only had 1 system. I think, Landon, that was best practice, that had any data with related person name text in it. Everyone else had like name.given or name.family that was being tested. So we need to look at more of, is this actually something that is common, that is minimum, that we need to keep supporting and get track back evidence from that. And we also have just about everything in terms of requester. So the full list is on the testing page that we keep updating. So I've just embedded a link here on requester. We've got a bunch of things where we've got maybe 2 systems are looking at encounter with interaction read, or have demonstrating use of patient plus class. But overall, we've got quite a few requesting systems, but because they're different client apps, you don't have the ubiquitous kind of coverage of fire resources that you do from a responding system like an EMR. And so we're still looking for this kind of coverage. So just quick call out for any of the people online. If your system does this, please reach out. Please let me know. I'm really interested to understand how you're using this, and for us to start to fold in that into what we're covering in AU Core. Last bit of update on AU Core testing. So that EOI has closed to understand where and when would we run a sparked 1-day testing event. And overwhelming results said Brisbane, please. And we're just finalising that now. So there'll be a registration for the Brisbane sparked testing event, I think for like maybe end of June, early July, not sure yet, that will come out in the next week or 2. So it'll come out via email to folks, but it'll also be listed on our AU Core testing page where all those things, all those stats, who's testing, what are they testing, detailed spreadsheets are all kept up to date on this Confluence page. So before I move off this topic, is there any questions that people have about this or the previous updates? All right. So where are we time-wise? We are, okay, we've got 45 minutes to go. All right. So we're going to move into some AU Core Jiras now. The ones that were advertised as what we're going to cover in this meeting. So these are editorial ones, none of the normative yet. So we've got 4 here. These were raised late last year on AU Core that are proposing editorial improvements. So either suggesting the addition of some clarifying text, or adding in some references or things like that. So there's no normative changes or substantive changes here to actual profiles. Before I go into this list, can I just check online? Does anyone want to hold over or postpone any of these? And does anyone have a burning issue that they would like to raise instead of working through these editorial backlog items? All right, I'm not seeing any. So we've got these 4. And I'll just check for folks online. Is there any one of these that they'd prefer that I start with? Otherwise, I'll just start at the top. All right, let's go for it. Okay, first one. So that's just the title of the Jira issue. Let's go there. Okay, is that big enough? I might need to make that bigger for folks. How about that? Is that a good size?
The last one was fine. This one's fine.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Okay, so we have an editorial issue that was raised. That was raised by Andy, and there is this statement here that it's unclear how diagnostic result relates to pathology result. And so in the description, it's got pathology is a kind of diagnostics, yet there seems no documented relationship between the 2 observation profiles. So I'll just go to the current state of those and I'll double check. Is Andy on the line? No. Okay. So let's go to AU Core current state. So we have a set of observation resources. We have 2 of these. One is diagnostic result observation and one is pathology result observation. I'll just cover diagnostic result observation here. The purpose of this is to define a set of requirements around recording, searching, and fetching diagnostic results associated with a patient. It is derived from the AU-based diagnostic result profile. And it has a set of guidance that is, again, at a high level. But it doesn't, and I think the person who raised the Jira issue is correct, it makes no mention in guidance or otherwise the fact that there is actually a pathology result observation profile. And if I go to the AU Core pathology result observation profile, this says, hey, I'm all about the minimum expectations for recording, searching, and fetching pathology results. And I'm based on the AU base pathology result observation. So if we come down, again, fairly generic content. And here we've got, it's derived from AU-based pathology result. And it has some pathology specific requirements in it, of course, using, the RCPA kind of terminology, things around specimen that we have built out. So I guess I put to this group, how would we like to address this? I think this is indeed a meaningful statement that there's 2 observation profiles and we haven't actually put any wording that says there even is a relationship between the 2 or what it is. Would anyone like to comment on this further or make some suggestions for how we resolve this piece of feedback?
What do we say in AU base about the relationships between the two profiles that these derive from? Because this could feed into when do we again say in a core profile stuff we've already said in a base profile?
So I'll start with AU-based pathology result, which says I'm all about a pathology result specifically issued by a diagnostic service provider in an Australian context. And it doesn't mention AU-based diagnostic result. If we go to AU-based diagnostic result, this says, I'm an observation structure and I'm about a diagnostic investigation result, and it's by a diagnostic service provider, and I might be used to represent a specialist or other, but here it's got in brackets, not imaging or pathology. So there, I think, is the first mention of linkage between the two from AU base. And then it's got in its usage notes to go look at AU-based pathology result for guidance if what you're doing is actually a pathology test.
Is this clear whether it's for use me when it's not pathology or diagnostic imaging, or on the other hand, whether it's use this when you don't know what it is and you want something that that subsumes the other two? Is this clear about that difference?
I believe the AU-based profile for this one is saying, don't use me for imaging or pathology. There are other profiles for this over here.
Okay, so this doesn't subsume the other one. This is for diagnostic results which are neither imaging nor pathology.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind there is an imaging result in AU base as well.
Yeah.
So there is the three of them. And I mean, that comment there, specialist or other diagnostics. So, but yes, it is qualified by not imaging, not pathology. It's anything and everything other than that.
We could look to adopt the same language in AU Core, including directing people from the diagnostic result profile to say that if you are doing a pathology test, you actually look at the pathology result observation, not this profile. We could do that.
I think that's all we can do at the moment, other than any specific formal relationship between it within AU base, which is AU base's problem, not AU Core, because of the way that the AU Core are inheriting from the AU base pathology, for example. So I think all we can do at this point in time is to provide that textual guidance on, hey, it's diagnostics is not this, you should go look at these others, and vice versa, that pathology should say, this is for pathology only. If you want imaging or diagnostic, go look over here.
Are there any other comments on what Heath has suggested there? Does that seem like a reasonable approach? Does anyone want to propose a different approach? All right, I'm not seeing anyone propose a different approach. Then Heath, do you feel like you could make a motion?
Sure, I'll motion what I just said.
What did you say? Thanks, David.
Some textual notifications. What did David do?
Oh, David said that what you said sounded fair.
Okay. Basically, just adding textual relationships within AU Core, indicating what it's not used for, and when you want to use it for those other reasons, you should use these other profiles in both directions.
All right. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Sure, I can, David. Cool.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions before we move to a vote on this? All right, I'm not seeing any. So I will launch the poll for the current motion as worded by Heath that we will pull out from the transcript.
Which will still be clear as mud.
All right, we've got 50% of people voting. So we need a few more. I can see, Dusha, you've put yours in the chat. For the other people who can't see the electronic vote button, please either put it in the chat, or if you can't see that because you've dialed in, please say your name and your vote, affirmative, negative, or abstain. All right, I'm now going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll end that poll. So taking into account the vote in the chat, I see that affirmative is 31 votes, negative is 0 votes, and abstain are 9 votes. So that motion passes. We will make that change. And because potentially the change is clear as mud, we will bring it back and show people what that wording is to confirm if there are any tweaks that people would recommend. All right, thank you. So let's go to the next one, next editorial one. All right, this one, 46878, called repeated content. Just close a few tabs down. Okay, so another one raised by Andy. And this one is saying that on this page, which is relationship to AUCDI and other IGs, that there's content in it that is repeated from the AUCDI page, and it should be removed because there's already a link to the AUCDI page. I'll just go to those 2 pages now for everyone. So we have in guidance, there's a lot of pages in AU Core, but there's a page that is about the AU Core data for interoperability, which talks about like the process, and it also maps the AUCDI mappings into AU Core. And there's quite a bit of text here on what AUCDI is and the relationship between them. And then there is also this other page, which is relationship with other IGs, which talks about, in this section, AUCDI. And at the time that this issue was raised, I think the text was in exact copy. And so this defines what, copies over to say, I'm about to talk about AUCDI. So it says what it is, it says what AU Core is, and it talks about a relationship between them, including some text on how it gets updated, and then has a link for saying you can find mapping information over here. So that's kind of what is currently in AU Core. Coming back to the issue, which is saying, look, you've got some content that's repeated on both pages and that the content should be removed. Would anyone like to comment on that suggestion for change? Dushi.
Yes, thank you. I like the content that's on relationships page. I think these 2 pages sort of do different things. And even though some of the content is repeated, I think it provides useful context about the relationship of AU Core to these other specifications, including AUCDI. So the page includes description of other specs that we describe relationships with, like AU base and IPA, IPS, US Core. I think that's quite useful to have it on this page without the need to navigate to some other page, sort of breaking the flow and then come back to this page. I do think we could remove some of the paragraphs from this page, relationship to AUCDI and other IGs, like the paragraph that talks about community input could possibly be removed, and we can slightly revert the paragraph that links to the AUCDI page to remove some of the duplications. But other than that, I think I would be very happy to keep the content as is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're saying your suggestion is that we could remove the bit on updates to AU
Yes.
Core depends on community input,
Mhm.
because all of that can just live on
All of that
this
lives in the
page.
yes.
Which actually it doesn't live there anymore, but I agree that it probably doesn't belong on the relationships page. Maybe we need to move it to this page. I'm not actually sure it needs to. Maybe we could just take it out. But okay, yep. And you're then suggesting that this one, which is about C for relationships, that this sentence could be improved
We
about
can improve it
linking off.
slightly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And keep the rest of the content because I think it's quite helpful in the context of the whole page and what the page does.
Does that link goes to the other page?
It does, yes.
Yeah, no, that needs to be improved. That's not clear. But yeah, I think the other one can be just removed. I think it's superfluous in general, not moved.
Okay. All right, so you're also in agreement, Heath. We can remove this paragraph, which is about a process update and not actually about relationships, and to improve this sentence, which links off to that other page on mappings.
Yeah, say something about the relationship between AU Core and AU CDI data groups. I think that's
except for besides the words that actually say relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just between AU Core, like.
Okay. So your suggestion is basically swap the order, relationship between AU Core and AU CDI.
Yeah, between what? I mean, oh, sorry. No, that's fine. I missed the last few words. Sorry. That's fine. AUC and AU Core profiles. Yeah, that's fine. The way it is.
Okay. Are there any other comments or suggestions on that approach? Sorry, I think I cut someone off.
Are we happy with what the other page says? I mean, is this? I mean, I don't see any problems with it, but does this need review at all, or is this a finished piece with a clear idea of what it's doing at this point of the implementation guide?
I would probably, for the purposes of scoping, to address this particular piece of feedback, that if you think, I think we could undertake that action if we want to review this content, or that someone can and raise a suggestion for us to consider. But I don't think that's the point of this issue. I think that's a second consideration.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other?
I like the changes to the modifications that have been put forward. I think that is quite good. I also like to, very often when you're reading a Fire IG, you're kind of click on link upon link upon link, and you kind of head down a rabbit hole and you forget where you were first thinking of. So I think to be able to just kind of go through this and have the important information there that allows you to just read the page in one go is useful.
Thanks, Marvin. Are there any other comments or suggestions on this topic?
Are we proposing a change to the text for that last paragraph that you've got highlighted? And if so, what is it? Because I don't understand
think we
what
are.
the relate change is. Okay, so it's simply to remove the first of the highlighted paragraphs.
Yep.
And no other changes.
I would suggest, though, that I think the page name has changed. The page name is now this. So I believe that an improvement should be made to correct that to be the actual page name.
Okay, yes. Yeah, that should happen.
While we're here, we may as well.
Yep.
The problem is that we've actually got a link up above with exactly the same title, which points up to the actual AU CDI itself.
So what that would be is we would say, see the insert page name here, page, for the ... I don't think there's any way to get around it, though. Although it doesn't, yeah.
It's slightly different. It's AU core data for interoperability rather than Australia core data for interoperability. It's very
Oh
similar.
God, are they? Oh yes, good. Oh, okay. Can we take an action, sorry, to in the minutes, I don't care if that's on me, to look at this page title. That's a separate thing. I'm not convinced that's the right page title.
I think it needs to be something more about being a mapping, AU CDI mapping to AU core or something along those lines.
All right. Let's take that as a separate content to look at renaming this page and agreeing on that. And obviously the link to the page should always be the page name. That's just a standard convention. Are there any other suggested changes to this sentence besides whenever we correct that page name or land on the current page name, we will just update this to match the page name? So at the moment, the change that's been discussed by 3 people is removing this paragraph, but otherwise retaining the small, I guess, portion of text in here that is also on the other page as context. Are there any other comments or suggestions about improving the text on this page related to the repetition?
Just the paragraph above the one you've got highlighted. Blah, 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 blah. An interpretation of AUCDI is necessary, which is undertaken through the community.
Mm-hmm.
Does that belong here? I'm not sure. I'm questioning it, but not doubting it.
It kind of actually links to the next sentence. If
Yeah,
the CAU CDI is kind of say, we need to interpret this. And I think it actually, without that sentence in between or paragraph in between, it actually bridges them together.
so once we remove updates, that would read, there's clinical data requirements, core does the fire thing, there's an interpretation necessary, go here to see that relationship.
Yep.
Okay.
To see how we've interpreted it.
All right, final call for comments or suggestions on this one. Okay, then I'll pass back to you folks. Who would like to make a motion? And what would you like that motion to be?
I'll make a motion. I'll motion that we remove the paragraph related to community input and updates to AUCDI, and to revert the paragraph linking to the AUCDI page where we changed the hyperlink text to match the page title, and we retain the rest of the content.
Okay,
I
we
think
have a motion there. Heath?
In general, what we're saying is it's non-persuasive with mod.
Yes.
Yes.
And noting that the Jira is raised as a technical correction. So I think it should be a change request.
Whoops. That's just Jira admin on my part. Let me just change that now to make it a change request. Apologies. So there's a motion raised by Dushi to remove the paragraph starting with the word updates to ensure the next sentence, which links to the page, matches the title of that page in the IG, and to otherwise retain the rest of the text. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'm happy to second it, Marvin.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. Are there any other comments and questions? Michelle?
Sorry, I'm very new at this one, but I'm just wondering, does that paragraph need to be therefore in every other paragraph, or there's just a single paragraph outside of 3.5.2 which encompasses, any changes to the specifications? I'm just wondering why it's specifically in that space.
Dushi, would you like to answer as the primary ID editor?
Sorry, something took my attention for a moment. Can I hear the question again? Sorry.
I was just wondering why that clarification paragraph was specifically in 3.5.2, whether it should just sit, at the very front or the very back, where people can actually go to for any changes they want or any questions or feedbacks. It just seemed it's a strange paragraph to have sitting in the middle of a document.
I think it was there. I think it was there because we included it in it was in the section on AUCDI and how updates to the AUCDI requirements are managed and relationship with these specs. So I think it was just left there.
And hence why it's been removed.
Hence why we are removing it now, yes.
Yes, I believe. So at the time this issue was raised, the text on this page itself was also not yet improved, which it got through ballot, and it also had this content. So I believe when Andy raised the issue, he was right that this was just a pure copy and paste of all of this into the other page. And then we went and improved this page through ballot, but we didn't improve the other page. I think that's why that's just been left there.
That's fine. I just, I don't know the whole document, so.
Oh, no, of course. And, given 18 months of community meetings to improve paragraphs, I think sometimes things get left in surprising places because of other changes.
That's fine. Thank you. I
don't think the IG has anywhere a general statement about the community process for working on the IG. I'm not advocating that we have one, but if we did have a thing, then this would be part of such a statement. But I'm not convinced that the IG wants a section or a place to talk about the community engagement process.
The closest would be this, which links off to the actual pages that talk about the community process. But that would be the closest section that matches the current IG, which might be sufficient, I guess. All right. Thank you, Michelle. Are there any other questions about the motion that is on the table, which is and I'll try to get back to it, which is to remove the paragraph that's starting with the word updates on the relationship page, and to ensure the hyperlink matches the actual page name in the IG and to otherwise retain the text. So that's the motion on the table. Dushi has motioned, Marvin has seconded. Are there any other comments or questions before we move to the vote? All right, hearing none, I will launch the poll. So again, you should see an electronic poll pop up for that. If you're happy for that change to be made, vote affirmative. If you're not happy for that change to be made, vote negative. If you don't mind either way, or you're not prepared to make a decision, you can put abstain. If you're unable to vote through the electronic vote, please put in the chat. If you've dialed in, please say your name and your vote. All right, we've got 75% of people have voted now. And I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll end that poll. Taking the numbers in the chat, that is 29 affirmative, 0 negative, and 6 abstain. The motion passes. So we will have that resolution, which is non-persuasive with modification, to remove that paragraph, correct the hyperlink, and otherwise retain the content. Now, looking at where we are, I think we might need to stop the Jiras there and come on to the next set of content. So these bottom two will be held over to the next meeting. I'll also put out that call for folks on how to add your Jiras you care about changing into the next meeting. But let's talk about what's next, because there is a few things. So coming up this Friday, there's an optional information session on healthcare service. This is to have that context coming into reviewing the proposal from the agency on AU Core Healthcare Service. And before we vote on that in our next meeting on the 17th of April, there is an information session that will be held, and the agency is doing that this Friday. You should have the invites in your calendar. If you don't, you can email me or message me and I'll forward that to you. And then we're going to have our next call on the 17th of April, and that will be where we vote on the proposal for healthcare service, and also where we discuss the 2 Jiras that we've just kind of held over to the next meeting. And then in the next couple of meetings, we'll be looking to continue through the AU Core backlog. If you have an issue in the backlog that you want raised and resolved in this current release of AU Core, you need to highlight that. And you need to do that, and you can do it in a couple of ways, by either emailing me or another co-chair to say, I would like to talk about this particular issue in this meeting. You could also message on Zulip in the AU Core chat. You can also make a comment on the meeting minutes. So for a particular agenda that's coming up in Confluence, you can go to the bottom of that Confluence page and suggest an agenda item that way. There's kind of any way that you can catch the co-chair's attention to make sure that we're adding in what you want to talk about, and we'll put that into the next call. Now, this is the essential one we have to do because daylight savings ends at the end of this week. So that means we need to reconfirm or change our meeting time. And what we've been doing at the moment, or rather, I guess, the last couple of times this has come up, we've kept option 2. But that doesn't mean we always have to. So I'm about to put out a poll here on where people would like going forward. So that's starting from our next meeting, 17th of April, through to October. What should our meeting time be when daylight savings has ended? So I'm about to put up the poll now and get people to vote for that. When I find the poll. Polls. Where are we? Here we go. Okay, so you should see that. All right, we've got about 60% of people voted. Strong preferences. That's good. All right, 75% of people have voted. And I'm going to count that down now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll. Okay, overwhelming majority, 17 people, said keep 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. 6 people said change to 12 Australian Eastern Standard Time. And 11 said I don't mind. So we are going to go forwards with 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. If there is a significant set of people who are finding that not working as we go, we can revisit this in a couple of months and just double check where that is and make sure that is still working for the people on the call. I will, oops, forgot to click share the results. Go. All right. Couple more bits of business. So the healthcare service proposal. So this is what we're actually going to be voting on in the next call. This has been put out. It was advertised via email. There's a proposal for review. And so there's a profile. If you click on this, there's a branch that is being made available. I'm just clicking on it. Yes, go. Which has the proposed profile from the agency on what is proposed as must support, any terminology changes, any mandatory or must support elements, what the proposed support for search parameters are for AU Core requesters and AU Core responders is here. You will also find there is the matching proposal in the capability statements. And I'll go to those in a sec. There's examples. So there's a couple of examples that are showing what do we mean by this? What might that actually look like? And I'll just go to here's requester. So this is here in the capability statement showing what is being proposed again in terms of search parameters. Match. Let me just check that. Oh, it does. So there's no search combination suggested. There you go. So shall read, shall search. Here's what's proposed. So please have a look at this. This is what we're going to be voting on. Now, prior to the meeting, there's a Confluence page here, which is where you can put in your content. So based on this, and we've already got some feedback from Brett, early reviewer, where if you have feedback on this particular element, you can do a couple of things. You can either do an inline comment, you can edit the page, or you can come right to the bottom of the page and just put a comment in here. So pop those in and the agency will monitor that and we'll go through the feedback and summary responses at the time that we vote on this in our next call. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so after assuming we land on a position that we're all happy to go forwards with, that will then go to the Spark testing event, which we'll do some testing on, and we'll come back here for feedback for that. We'll continue to provide updates on this proposal and anything else related to it in the Zulip channel. The Zulip channel for AU Core, it's probably faster if I just use my open tab, where this has all those links here. And you can post questions or feedback or anything like that also in this Zulip poll. I'm sorry, in this channel. Does anyone have any questions about the fact there's a proposal out, or how do you respond, or anything about that? Okay, so next meeting then. Next meeting, 17th of April, we've just voted on the time, and everyone might have noticed there's no meeting series yet. It ended today because we were confirming the time. So I'm going to update that today and send out the meeting series after this call. And we've just voted on what that is. Current agenda is usual business, and then going through AU Core Healthcare Service proposal. We will also bring the 2 Jiras that we didn't vote on today into this call. And I think have a look at where we are in terms of AU Core and forward planning. I should be able to announce when the Spark testing event is, and maybe even any updates around the Connectathon will be there. And my question to the group is there anything else that you want to be discussed at our next meeting? I'm not hearing anything now. Again, you can either put it in the Zulip channel, Dushi's just posted that. You can message me or email me, or any other co-chair, and we'll just keep adding to the agendas. Otherwise, I think we'll start to just work through the backlog. There's a backlog of AU Core Jira items, and as co-chairs, we'll just keep bringing those forwards on a sort of on a general kind of basis as we go through and contact people and make sure they're available, and then we'll bring those into the agendas. But if you want yours to come to the top, please highlight it. All right. I think I'll probably end it there. I don't know if 7 minutes is actually enough time to go through another Jira. So unless there's any other topics people would like to discuss, I think we should finish early. I'm not hearing any. So let's bring that meeting to a close. Thanks, everyone. and I'll see you in a fortnight where we can discuss AU Core Healthcare Service.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
you.